Welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Line with Greg Heym. Today is April 29th. This is episode 23. I couldn't really come up with a good song for this one. I'm sorry about that. We'll try. Next week, we already know what we're going to use for 24. You have a week to think about it. See if you can figure it out. How's everybody? It's a beautiful morning here in New York City.
A little muggy.
It's going to get warmer. We like the warm weather. How you doing today, Hannah?
I'm doing great. Summer is on the horizon.
That's what we're all hoping, right? Because
yes.
everybody in my house has been sick for about 3 months now, so it'd be nice if we can get that straightened out. And let's go Rangers. That's all I have to say this morning.
Definitely.
Took out the Caps in 4. I got to admit, I felt a little sad for Alex Ovechkin. He looks so old, although he did have over 30 goals this year, but didn't have a point in the series. I think he only had 5 shots in the 4 games. Just sad. It's going to get a lot harder for the Rangers now because next they'll probably face Carolina, who's a very good team. But we're going to enjoy this, and we're going to enjoy the Knicks up 3-1 against Philly. Jalen Brunson he was him yesterday. That's all I can say. He just got it done, set a playoff record for the Knicks. It was a rough game. These teams clearly don't like each other, which is good. It makes for nice rivalries. And we have this new design from our friends at the Everset.
Yes.
So that's
Looks
cool.
Great.
Yeah. And a programming note, next week we're going to have Noah Rosenblatt on the show from Urban Digs. If anybody thinks I'm a nerd with data, wait till you listen to Noah. It's going to be a lot of fun. We always have great conversations. And we promise to fight a little bit. We never get into arguments. We're always saying we have to. So that'll be pretty good. So let's start, and I think today we're going to focus on the line items because there were 2 really important bits of data in the line and that need a little deep dive. So Why don't we start with the first one, the big head-scratching moment of the week?
Yes. Economic growth was weaker than expected in the first quarter of 2024.
You know, if you watch Gomer Pyle or if you've ever seen Gomer, he would always go, surprise, 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 like that. It's a surprise because we were expecting a much higher number, right? We're in here almost every week talking about how great the economy is, job growth, adding over 300,000 jobs, low unemployment rate, people spending money, and GDP only grows at a 1.6% annual rate. And at first, that might make you happy because, didn't Greg say economic growth has to slow to get inflation down? And then mortgage rates will go down, right?
You've said it.
Crap. Ray will put a montage together of me saying that over and over again. And we all want the Fed to start cutting rates, not just for housing, but it's good for all of us, It makes borrowing rates for everything cheaper, except 30-year mortgages. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the Fed keeps going, well, the economy's strong. It doesn't really need rate cuts. Well, in fact, it's another thing I've been saying a lot, right? We don't need rate cuts.
Right. So
you say, okay, you got all that. You got this weaker than expected GDP report. They were expecting 2.4%. We got 1.6% annual rate of growth. So, all right, we're going to get rate cuts, right? Greg's been saying no, but see, he's wrong. And the growth rate, that 1.6, is the weakest since the second quarter of 22 and follows the previous 2 quarters were 4.9 and 3.4%. So it seems like the brakes have been slammed on the economy.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
So where are our rate cuts, Greg? Well, if it was only that simple. And economics, it's very hard to make things simple. I try.
Why is that?
I think there's a lot of buts in there. There's always this is happening, but this could happen. So, if things are moving in the same direction, if slower growth meant less inflation, we'd be high-fiving each other going, yeah, mission accomplished. This is good. This is what we want. But that's not what happened because the headline thing in the GDP report is economic growth. But then, our good buddy, the Corp, personal consumption expenditures price index, or core PCE, to her friends or his friends.
And the Fed's favorite measure of inflation.
That is true.
Thank
See?
you. Thank
Gold
you.
star for Hannah.
Thank you.
See, it only takes 23 episodes for this stuff to sink in.
I knew that from day one. Okay, I would never forget a good a little memory quip to learn something.
You know, you got to associate it with something, and then, you know, maybe a hatred of economics. Like, core PCE.
No.
Damn it! Now I know what that is. It's like, it's the lingo. It makes you sound like you know what's going on. And that number, remember, the Fed wanted a 2% annual rate of growth. And that's what had happened those prior 2 quarters. We had strong growth and inflation was okay. But core PCE jumped to 3.7% in the first quarter of this year. So one economist described the GDP report as, quote, the worst of all possible reports. So
Not too good.
in economics, we teach that slowing growth combined with rising inflation, which is what we had in the first quarter, will get people worried about something called stagflation. You know, we have too many types of inflation, deflation, disinflation. You know, we take all day talking about them all. But there are 3 requirements for stagflation. So stagflation happens when the economic growth is slowing, inflation is rising, and the unemployment rate is going up.
Okay.
And that, for sure, we know is not happening. The unemployment rate is currently 3.8%. So it's almost near historic lows. And there's still just under 9 million unfilled jobs out there. And guess what? Jobless claims just fell to the lowest level in 9 weeks. So why would we expect the unemployment rate to go up when there's all these unfilled jobs there? So how does this happen, though? It doesn't make sense out of the blue. And some people will say maybe it's anomaly. There's a lot of estimation that goes on. We'll get a revised number in a couple of weeks. There's actually 2 revisions to each GDP report. So there's 3 sides to every story, so to speak, not 2 when it comes to GDP. So, and, you know, it seems we're always talking about how great the labor market is, and the March jobs number blew everybody away. It was much higher job growth than anybody expected. The unemployment rate went down. It had been expected to go up. But in there, we always point out that you look at how fast wages are growing relative to prices. And for the last several months, wages have been rising faster than prices. So that can bring inflation up. More money in Greg's pocket means Greg can spend more money, right?
Right.
Trust me, I've tried. I haven't bought a guitar in at least a month, 2 months, maybe 3, I don't remember.
It's the first step to recovery.
Well, you know, is admitting you have too many guitars. You're literally putting one in the bed next to you at night. There's no
Read
room
a bedtime
for more
story.
guitars.
Yeah.
Well, so that's one of the reasons, or the best explanation I can give you is why inflation has started to pick up again, is that we have, you know, wages rising faster. That can bring inflation up. But the question is, GDP is based on consumption, right? What 70% of it is what me and Hannah buy. You know, Hannah favors books. I favor guitars. Mine are a little more expensive, but we enjoy them both dramatically, right?
I'm sure we spent the same amount on both. I mean,
well, you have a lot of books.
Yeah, I do. Too many.
Yeah, you're gonna have to switch to a Kindle soon because you're gonna run out of places to put them all, I think.
We'll
So,
see.
was there any sign that this was coming? Well, if you remember, I actually had to look it up to make sure I remembered correctly. Retail sales were negative in January slightly, but did rebound the prior 2 months. You know, spending is outpacing income. So we're talking about income's rising. Well, how does spending outpace income? Americans are saving less. That's one thing we found out. Another thing we found out in the GDP report is personal savings rate is going down slightly. So how does the GDP number go down? Well, one of the things is the equation. Now, I hate to bring an equation into all of this.
It's all right.
But,
Go ahead.
You know, GDP, which is the value of all goods and services produced in the United States, there are 4 components. Trust me, this will not be that bad. And you'll be like, thanks for clearing that up, Greg, hopefully. So it's C plus I plus G plus NX. All right, what does that mean? C is for cookie. No, sorry.
Not again.
I can't get the Cookie Monster out of my mind. C is for consumption, personal consumption, the stuff we buy, 70% of the number. I, some people call it investment, some people call it inventories. Think about it if you're a company and you're one of the ways, the way you really count GDP is by looking at sales data, right? What people buy. But there's also the stuff that's made that is sitting in warehouses that hasn't been purchased, inventories. So we look at that. G is for government, which isn't good enough for anybody, it seems, because everybody seems unhappy. And NX is net exports. Okay. Now we know that we typically import more.
I'm still with you. I'm with the equation.
So it's those four things. So consumption is the ultimate number. The C is what we're really looking at, and that was less than expected. Investment can be wonky. You build up inventories for a month or two, and then you don't, so that boost goes away. Government is typically, within a narrow range. But net exports subtracted almost 0.9%, or almost a full percent from the GDP number. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that, but that is one thing. There can be quirks in this data, so we like to point it out. But the big takeaway, what we really, really want you to know, is something I said the last several weeks. Forget about rate cuts this year. Not going to happen. Not a chance. And the next move the Fed may make is a rate hike. Because we're talking about being in the red zone. We're getting close. We thought, we got inside of 4% year over year. We're getting closer. It's like, all right, now it's like, wait, we're going in the wrong direction. We got a 15-yard penalty, and now we're out of the red zone. We got to get back in there. To me, if I'm the Fed, I'm staying the course. I'm not thinking about either right now. Let's just let market do what the market's going to do and sort of equalize itself out. But a lot of people say, Greg, these high rates are killing us. Well, when it comes to housing, sure, it doesn't help because mortgage rates are elevated. But as we've said a million times on this show, I think we have a counter. We get a counter.
It's not on the screen, but we do have it.
How many times Greg says that the Fed doesn't control mortgage rates? It's like Allen Iverson saying practice in that famous interview. Google it. Allen Iverson practice. It's hysterical. Okay. So they actually, ESPN put a counter in the corner how many times he said practice. He was skipping practices, so he kept saying practice. So
that's actually really funny. Let's do that.
There's no direct correlation between what the Fed does and what 30-year mortgage rates do. In fact, if they cut rates, that would raise inflation expectations and bring the 30-year mortgage rates up. But forgetting, what it does or potentially does for the housing market, there's a lot of economists that say that since the Fed has hiked rates, it's actually been helping the economy. How does that work? Well, higher rates don't just happen with loans. They happen with savings. People are they used to be getting like 0.25% on their money. Now they could be getting 4 or 5% or more on their money. And a lot of the consumption that we see in the country right now that's been keeping retail sales alive are baby boomers. Right. And they are people that have a lot of money, and they won't sell their houses because they don't want to get a high mortgage, and they have a lot of cash, and they're spending it. But they also tend to have their money in savings because as you get older, typically you get away from stocks. So you could make an argument. It's sort of a fringe thing. See, we even have an economics fringe.
Nice.
There's people kind of out there, they're kind of the new wave kind of economic things that are saying.
You guys are trendy.
And have you ever seen the way most economists dress? I wouldn't say trendy would be one of them. I'm one of the better dressed ones, and you see.
Verbally trendy, then. Yeah, nice.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks. Ray's got a nice shirt on today.
Yes, he does.
I got to ask him about that. Get one of those. And the other thing is like the higher rates, we keep saying that the stock market wants rate cuts. But you know what? Stocks have been doing just fine when you think about it. Wall Street had a great year last year, paid $34 billion in bonuses. And so we have this bad GDP report on Thursday, and everybody loses their mind. Stocks tank.
Right.
But then some great earnings reports came out on Friday, and people said, forget about it. That's so Thursday. It's Friday. Let's not worry about Thursday. Because, again, Stocks only care about the future. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ had their best week since November. So problem solved. Let's forget about this GDP report for now. We'll see what the revisions hold. But, again, the Fed is going to wait. They need to see some consistency in the data. It'll be interesting when we get the jobs report this week, what that's going to show, what kind of job growth. But again, job growth can cause inflation if there's a desperate need for workers. And with almost 9 million jobs still out there, there's a desperate need for workers. But one of the things we noticed in the March numbers was the participation rate, or the percentage of working age people that are either working or looking for work, went up. And that's, if we get more people to get back into the workforce or enter the workforce, that would give us a higher supply. Higher supply of anything means prices go down and wages don't have to skyrocket to attract workers like they have been. So hopefully that cleared some things up for you. If not, we'll try better next week. But, this was a crazy number. I remember when it came over on the screen, it's like, I have to write a much different column than I thought. All right, so that's the latest on GDP. Before we get to our second item, we're going to take a break right now for this very important message.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
And we're back. Thanks for staying with us. We appreciate it. All right, so we have a second. So we had the bad.
It's not so dismal. The second.
The second
piece.
one was the lemonade out of the lemons, so to speak.
Sure, yeah. Pending home sales are up. Were up 3.4% in March.
So pending home sales are counted when contracts are signed. When you sign a contract, your home sale is pending. Correct. Where existing home sales, which is the other really important bit of data that the National Association of Realtors puts out, and most market reports are based on closing dates. This data, pending home sales, is based on contracts. So it's really what we would call a coincident indicator, or what's happening now. Because with closings, you say, those deals were negotiated several months ago and in like a different world. So up 3.4% in March. That's a huge increase in 1 month to increase that much. And NAR, it's actually an index. See, I don't want to get into this so much. We don't say the pending home index. People say pending home sales. They don't really. It's an index that they base relative to another year. You don't need to worry about that. But it was the best performance in a year.
Nice.
Economists were expecting a 0.3% decline, so it crushed expectations, just like the Rangers crushed the Capitals.
Yes.
Sorry, Ovi. I hope you do break Gretzky's record. I really do. But what's really impressive about this is we've been talking about how mortgage rates are going up. They crossed 7% for the first time since November recently. So how are these people, going out and buying these houses? Again, we talked about the savings rate going down and the wages going up, hiring brisk. The demand is there, and I think people realize they can't wait for the rates they want to see. Just like if you're shopping for a house, you can't wait for the rate you want to see. Also, you can't wait for the price you want to see.
Right. Because
with low inventory, prices are continuing to go up. So NAR also issued a forecast for existing home sales for this year, which they expect to rise 9%, which, last year was not a great year because of the low inventory, but still a 9% increase is nice. And prices expected to rise just under 2%. So, I guess that makes sense because of the low inventory. So that's a bit of good news, right? People are going out buying homes, making the decisions that they have to make. Remember, the majority of home buyers are buying because they need to or really want to buy, not as an investment. I don't know when real estate became such a speculative thing. Sure, people buy property for investment all the time, but it's certainly not a significant amount of all the sales. Some areas more heavily invested than others. We also got another bit of data for March that was really good, which was new home sales, which really surged because they were up almost 9% just last month. And new home sales, like pending home sales, are counted when the contract's signed. That's important with new home sales because you could close in a year or two while you're waiting for your home to be built. I mean, here in Manhattan or any place you're buying in a large, skyscraper condo, it could be several years. So when we look at the data of what's happening now, people are buying. Things are moving in the right direction. They're accepting the higher rates and realizing that they still need to buy or they still really want to buy. Some people may be rushing because, for the most part, prices continuing to rise. Rates are ticking up. Now the fear of missing out is I may miss out. You've already missed out on a 6.9% mortgage rate. Now it's a 7%. So it is getting people to make a move. But it is good that home buying is picking up. Also, home building has been picking up. That's good. We need more of that. Inventory is still really, really low in some places, and that's going to take time. Inventory typically rises in spring, and that's been happening. But if sales continue to pick up, that's going to be absorbed pretty quickly. And I know we talk a lot about the plight of potential home buyers out there, right? And certain generations that are going to look and see, wow, wait a minute, I got to save how much money? It's always been a huge task, but I understand when people look and they say, well, I only make this much. It's going to take me 30 years to save that much money or whatever it is. Things change. Things typically get better. And I think no situation is permanent. Rates are going to change. We talked about last week's line. I showed a chart. The Fed hasn't touched rates since July. So we put a chart of the mortgage rates since July, and they go up and down without the Fed even whispering a word. So keep an eye on rates. Remember, you're getting more in your savings. That's going to help you get to that down payment. There are always options, too, for loans. It's not just always a 30-year fixed. Isn't always the right choice for everybody. But unfortunately, you are in a market where you have to move quickly. In Long Island, I was talking to my neighbor who's an appraiser / real estate agent, and he's shocked at how quickly things are moving. But low inventory and high demand, which, again, is there because employment has been rising rapidly, is going to give you that FOMO. You get that fear of missing out. And that's something, in areas like New York City here where there is healthy levels of inventory, we don't see that same level of motivation. Quality product, well-priced product will sell in any market very quickly. But you have to be very in tune with conditions and comparables. And when a market's moving, it's like hitting a moving target. It's not so easy to get right. So that's the good news sort of sandwiched in with the bad news, depending on how you look at it. Again,
it's pretty optimistic.
Well, it just sort of is a closing to kind of keep the optimism. People are moving forward. They're understanding that rates aren't going to go back down to where they want them to be. Yes, it's bad that inflation is still elevated, and that's something that, is just going to take time to work out. When you mess up as badly as the Fed did, that's not something you can fix in a matter of a year or two, it seems. And unless you cause a full-fledged recession like Paul Volcker did in the 80s, then you can get rid of that problem a lot quicker, but with a lot of pain. So we need to continue to remember there are plentiful jobs out there. Wages are going up. People are working longer hours. The unemployment rate is incredibly low. Stocks are doing well, which is putting more money in people's pockets and helping them with their retirement. So that's all good stuff. So let's focus on that. I know it's hard when you're getting into election season. We're going to start thinking about all these things and arguing about them all day long. But let's just be happy.
For now.
And enjoy the NHL playoffs and the NBA playoffs and, whatever else you like to do.
The warmer weather.
the warmer
Let's
weather.
just throw everything in there. Like, just be
it's
optimistic
great
about life.
to go to work without a jacket on.
Right.
It is really. It's a nice way to walk.
It's the little things in life.
So I hope wherever you're watching this from, you're enjoying good weather. And again, we want to thank everybody for their support. Again, we're doing a lot better than we thought we would in terms of viewership and people that subscribe and listen. So thank you again so much for supporting the show. Please check out all the shows on the More Network. There are some really good ones out there. We've had some cross-promotion recently, and I'm going to have Candace and Melissa in a couple of weeks talking about their show, which is really about building wealth, which is a fascinating show. They do a great job, and Vince does his thing, and we have From the Borough to the Burbs, and we have a lot of really great shows, so check that out. Did I leave anything out, Hannah?
I don't think so. I'm looking forward to watching next week's episode, though.
Well, I just like to say I'm looking forward to recording it. But it's like this is the most time before I have to do the next episode, so I just try to relax for a couple days.
That's all we can do.
And it's not like I even prep early. I got to wait and get the latest economic data I can to get on, to be as current as we can. But it's going to be a great chat with Noah. I think everybody will enjoy it. So have a great week, and thanks again for tuning in.